Okay, so today we will be discussing our new lesson, the second to the last lesson before we go or before you have your monthly exam. Now, the second monthly exam, if I'm not mistaken, scheduled on November 15 no, and 16, okay, which is a Monday and Tuesday. That will be next week. Okay, so you would have this week na lang na before the second monthly exam of yours. Okay, so moving forward, as you can see here on my screen, okay, question first, what have you observed no, on the picture not shown in the screen? Okay, what can you observe? Now, what do you think it is all about? Now, this picture, what are your observations now when it comes to this picture? You can chat it in the chat box if you want. What can you say about the picture? What have you observed now in this picture? It's all about what? Pantry. Okay, it can be a pantry. Okay, very well. What else? What do you think this picture suggests? It talks about what aside from pantry? What problem do you think there is? Okay, according to Eunice, so it's poverty. Okay, so we can observe by just seeing or looking at this picture that there is poverty. Okay, that is happening not just in our country but also not in the world. Okay, that is poverty. Okay, you have observed poverty. Okay, so today we will be having our lesson which has something to do with observations. Okay, but not just merely looking not for something but also comprehending a particular text or a particular material. Okay, using the different techniques, methods, or approaches, or what we call theories when it comes to critiquing no, a paper. Okay, we will be having our lesson no, that such as critical approaches. Okay, which is writing a critique. Okay, how can we write a critique? How can we critique a particular material or text? Okay, so we are going to critique a particular material or text, okay, by following the different theories as well as approaches, okay, that can be used in criticizing a particular paper. First, now let's have first an introduction of it. Okay, what are the critical approaches when it comes to writing a critic? Okay, before we continue, so as you can see in the video, so these are the following critical approaches. So this is just with an overview of what are the critical approaches or some of the critical approaches, not that to be discussed later on. Okay, so just like what I mentioned, this is just an introduction or a brief overview of what are the some of the critical approaches. No, apat pa lang yung pinakita dyan, but there are many critical approaches pa. No, there are many theories or approaches that can be used when it comes to criticizing a particular paper. So first, let us define what is a critic. So when we say a critic, it is a careful analysis no, of an argument to determine what is said, how well the points are made, what assumptions underlie the argument, what issues are overlooked, and what implications are drawn from such observations. It is a systematic yet personal an evaluation of what you read. Okay, so meaning this is observations. Okay, systematically, okay, about a particular text. Okay, so it is a genre of academic writing which briefly summarizes no, and critically evaluates a work no, or a particular concept. So critics can be used to carefully analyze a variety of works such as creative works, research, and media. Okay, yung critic, ginagamit natin siya sa pag-analyze ng mga ito. Now, when we say creative works, no, it includes the novels, exhibits, no, films, images, and poetry. When we say research, no, it can be monographs now, it can be journal articles, it can be systematic reviews, or it can be theories. When it comes to critiquing a media, it can be news reports or feature article. Okay, so like an essay, a critic uses also a formal academic writing style. Okay, so meaning it has a clear structure. Okay, meaning it has introduction, body, tsaka conclusion. Okay, so pero pagdating sa ating critical paper, sa ating critic, no, the body of a critic includes, okay, yung kanyang body. Okay, it includes the summary of a particular work or the summary of a particular material. Okay, and detailed evaluation of it. Okay, so sa summary or sa body ng isang critic, okay, nakalagay doon yung summary ng particular paper na pina-critic sa inyo and your evaluations. Okay, based on what critical approaches no you are going to use. Okay, so the purpose ng evaluation is to gauge no, the usefulness or impact of a work in a particular field. Okay, so yun yung ating critic paper. So meaning it is this observation of a particular paper by using the different approaches no, that you're going to learn later on. So how do we write a critic? So writing a critic on a work helps us to develop the following. Okay, so just kindly read that one. Skip na natin yan. At mahaba-haba ang ating discussion. How to write a critic? So before you start writing down, it is important to have no, a thorough understanding of the work that will be critic. First, study the work under discussion. Okay, meaning you are about to read or even reread no, a particular work or a particular material no, that is under discussion or that you are about to critic. Make notes on key parts of the work. You can highlight. No? Pwede nyo gamitin yung ating annotations no? As well as yung mga pag-highlight. Develop an understanding of the main argument no? Or purpose being expressed in the work. Okay, so we must have we must comprehend the different issues okay, na meron dun sa particular material. Consider how the work relates to a broader issue or context. Okay, so if you can relate it outside, okay, outside the context, then it's much better. Okay, but it depends na upon the approach that you are going to use. Kasi there is an approach which is a formalistic approach or a formalism approach na hindi nagbe-base outside the context. Okay, mismo yung context lang ang ating i-observe. Okay? So read about the critical approaches. You can highlight some important ideas. You can use this in expressing your views. So ito na yung ating mga different approaches in writing a critique. Meron tayong tinatawag na formalist approach. Meron tayong gender criticism approach. Meron tayong feminist criticism. Meron tayong historicism or historical approach. At meron din tayong reader response criticism. Meron din structuralism. And lastly is the sociological criticism. Okay? So we will be having that one by one. First is the formalist approach. No, nakita niyo ito kanina sa overview. So this approach regards literature no, as a unique form of human knowledge that needs not to be examined on its own terms. All the elements necessary for understanding the work no, are contained within the work itself. No, of particular interest to the formalist critics are the elements of form, okay, style, structure, tone, imagery, etc. that are found within the text. Meaning, okay, so the observations must be inside the text only. We are not going to connect it outside. We are not going to connect it to the author. Wala tayong pakialam kung sino yung author ng isang material. Okay? We are going to observe a particular text by its structure, no, the tone, imagery, its style. No, merely the context lang. Okay? So ang primary goal ng isang formalist critics is just to determine, okay, how such elements, no, work together with the text, no, with the text content rather, no, to shape its effects, no, upon readers. So this following, okay, papaano nga ba nakakaapekto itong mga ito doon sa particular text na yon? Okay, so for further discussion of that, let's have this video.
Video. So this is all about formalistical approaches to literature. We will be discussing about formalist criticism. Now I have a question before we start. How would you like to be judged by other people? By the way you are now, or by the way you were during your past? Or you want people to assume who you really are based on your past behavior? Most of us would actually choose for people to actually know us for who we are right now. And same goes for formalist approach or formalist criticism. Now, when we say formalist criticism, when we are going to be analyzing a text, we are just going to be analyzing the text itself. The text itself. It focuses on the text. The background of the text, the background of the author doesn't matter. Shakespeare who? Throw that away. We don't need your Shakespeare here. We don't need Shakespeare here. No one cares if you are the author of this certain text. No one cares. What we care most about here is that the text itself. We are going to be criticizing what is in the text. Now, when we say formalist criticism, it uses close reading. Now, when we say close reading, we are going to be reading the text word by word because we believe in the formalist criticism or for formalist critics that every word has a relation to one another, that these words here are correlated. These words have relationships. Words have relationships. Sana all. Now it ignores the author. No one cares about Shakespeare. Throw him away. No one cares. Reader and the social context, the author's opinion, the reader's opinion, the background, the social background of the text does not matter. No one cares about all of that. We don't care about that. All we care about is the text itself. So what we are going to be looking at formalist criticism here are the imageries, the figurative languages found in the text structure, the physical structure of the text. Okay, so we have here critical approaches in writing. So the very first topic that we've talked about, the criticism that we are talking about is the formalist criticism. Now here are more sample definitions that we can provide for formalist criticism. Now first of all, formalist approach studies a text as only a text. Now I've already explained that to you. So we are going to be looking at the features of the text, like for example, the rhymes, the literary devices, and not attempting to apply their own say as to what the text means. So your opinion here does not matter. In general, formalists are focused on the facts of the text because they want to study the text, not what others want to say about it. The formalist strategy tends to focus on formal aspect of the work. Critics of formalists believe that literature is not a reflection of artists and authors. Like I said, we don't care about you guys. All we care about is the text. So in this sentence here, it means that the text is not influenced by the author or the social background of when the author wrote the text. Okay, so this strategy is useful for analyzing dramas and fictions because words and images shape the work itself. So a formalist critic examines the form of the whole piece, the form in individual parts of the text. It could be the scenes, the chapters in a drama, the letters, the settings, the moods, opinions, vocabulary, and all other related text elements. Instead of analyzing based on what you want to see, analyze the work based on what you actually observed or have seen. Don't think about what you want to see. Whatever it is written there, write what exactly you are seeing. Okay, so we actually have here an example formalist criticism. Formalist criticism, and this is from the novel A Rose for Emily by Victoria J. Crossman. So if you're going to be reading this is actually an example for a formalist criticism. I'm not going to read that to you because that will just consume our time, but you can pause this video and read this example so you would be able to understand what a formalist criticism is. That's all there is to this video. Click this playlist if you want to view more.
Okay, so that is all about formalist criticism or formalism. So when it comes to writing the formalist approach or formalism, so these are the questions not to be asked for formalistic approach. Okay, so these are the following questions that can be helpful when it comes to writing a critic paper using no a formalistic approach. No, again, it doesn't matter no who is the author, what are the social backgrounds of the author, what are the things outside the context, but it is merely talking about the context itself. Okay, what are the images? No, what are the imagery used? What are the language or the particular figurative languages used? No, it's all about the structures and the styles or the forms of the text when it comes to formalistic approach. No, factual lang. Next is meron naman tinatawag na gender criticism approach. Okay, so this approach examines, of course, from the word itself, now how sexual identity now influences the creation and reception of literary works. Later on, meron pa yung feminist approach. Okay, so originally, ang gender criticism, this is an offshoot no, of feminist movements. Okay, so gender criticism today includes a number of approaches. Okay, marami na siya. Yung gender criticism, under niya sina feminism, masculinist. Okay, so marami ng under si gender criticism. But first, now let us define or explain what gender criticism is when it comes to writing a critic.
One of the critical approaches to literature. Now, this type of critical literature is actually one of the most controversial ones. Now, today we're going to be talking about the gender criticism. But before we proceed to the entire discussion, so I want you to look at your screen right now. So we have 3 tables for male, both, and then female. Now, what you are going to be doing is that you are going to be assigning these activities to each of the gender. You're going to be assigning the activities that you think is supposedly for that gender. You can put in shooting guns for males or for females, or you can put in it in both. And I will be giving you at least a minute to actually think this through. So I want you to try and think about this. Okay, so you're probably done by now. Of course, we're not going to waste any more time. So I want you to look at your screen again, and I'm going to show you the answers. And I'm going to show you the answers. So there are actually three routes to this. Now, if you have answered this way, the male shooting guns, engineering, gaming, doctors, female cleaning, washing dishes, watching the kids, and then cooking. If your answer is like this, then you actually believe in the masculinity ideology, and I will discuss that later on. Now, if your answer is like this, you have all of these activities done by both male and female, then you belong to the feminist approach, or you believe in the feminist ideology. And that is something that I will discuss as well later on. If your answer is like this, then you belong to the 0.1% females who abhor males. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about gender criticism. Now, when we talk about gender criticism, let us first define the word gender. Now, what do we mean by gender? Gender means the state of being a man or a female. Now, when it comes to gender criticism, when we are going to be looking at a particular text, we are actually looking at how the author represents the genders in that certain text. Now, the purpose of gender criticism is to criticize gender as how we commonly perceive it, to criticize the author and his or her stereotypical prejudices or assumptions when it comes to the gender. Now, there are actually two approaches in gender criticism, and I've already mentioned them earlier. We have the masculinist approach and the feminist approach. Now, when you say masculinist approach, this is an ideology of masculinity. Now, what it means is that you simply believe in the male stereotypical gender. You believe in the stereotypical male roles. So the second approach is the feminist approach. Most people actually misunderstand how feminism works. So some people actually think that when a person says that he or she is a feminist, then he or she wants women to overpower men. But that is not the case when it comes to feminism. When you say feminist approach, this is an ideology that believes all genders should be equal. Male and female should be equal. There's no dominant, there's no oppressed. Both male and female deserve to have the same equal opportunities. Now, there are actually a lot of texts that you can use. There are actually a lot of texts that you may use gender criticism on. One particular idea that I would like to emphasize is the stereotypical idea or the stereotype when it comes to Disney princesses movies. Now, if you've noticed in Disney princesses movies, the princesses are always the damsel in distress. They cannot live without a prince saving them or saving the day for them. So that you can actually use gender criticism on that certain matter. Because when it comes to feminist approach, you actually want to correct these prejudices or these stereotypical assumptions made by the author. Now, here are the questions that we can actually use when it comes to using gender criticism. How is the relationship between men and women depicted in this certain work? How does the treatment of gender in the work reflect the work's meaning? So these are the strategies we can use when it comes to gender criticism. Okay, now we actually have here an example paragraph that you can read so you can further understand how gender criticism works. Now, in this particular text, this talks about the movie Titanic. Now, you can read this, and this will show you how stereotypical assumptions are being done in the movie Titanic. Now, if you want to watch the other videos that I've actually
Okay, so that is gender criticism. Okay, so we do have the feminist, meron din bago, which is the masculinity or the masculinist approach. Okay, when we say feminist approach, okay, so later on naman pala yan. Okay, so di mamaya ako na lang elaborate, no? So pero sabi niya kanina, when we say feminist approach, this is not just overpowering the men. Okay, this is not tawag dito, a woman or a female overpowering the male. Okay, this is just having the balance, no, between the two, no? So the male and the female. Okay, so these are the questions to be asked, no, when it comes to um, nasaan na ba yan? Later on pa pala, no, feminist approach. Okay, so sa feminist approach, just like what I mentioned earlier, it attempts to correct the imbalance between analyzing and combating such attitudes, no, by questioning, for example, by questioning. Okay, so again, this is not overpowering, okay, the male. Okay, but this is just balancing it, no? So walang dominance, no, walang nagdodomina, wala ring oppressed. Okay? So feminist criticisms no examines no images of women and concepts of the feminine no in myth tsaka in literature. Okay? So gumagamit tayo ng iba pa diyang underlying approaches. Meron pa yung tinatawag na psychological approaches, meron yung archetypal approaches, no meron yung sociological approaches even more. Okay, so there are so many approaches kasi no that we cannot tackle. No, these are the fundamentals lang no yung main approaches lang when it comes to a critic. Okay, so to furthermore analyze what feminism or what a feminist approach is, now let us watch this short video.
And welcome back! We're still talking about literary criticism, and this time we're touching on feminism, a hot topic these days. Now, feminism, as you probably already guessed, examines women in literature. But it's not just women, it's really the tension between male and female imagery within a piece of literature. Now, originally, feminism worked kind of like New Criticism with a presupposed opposition. You remember how in New Criticism we talked about tensions within the text. If you've forgotten your New Criticism, you can click over here and watch the video again. But in our text, instead of examining and just looking to see what tensions we can find, we go into the text looking for the tension between male imagery and female imagery, between female imagery and male imagery. And then we explore how both those symbols are treated. Are the female symbols being diminished, being pushed down, being suppressed? Are the male symbols being championed? That's usually the case, and usually what we discover. But we might also find that the female symbols are bursting free and coming loose, and maybe that's some sort of feminist kind of text. In feminism, you're going to see words like patriarchal a lot. Patriarchal comes from the word patriarch, which means father. And so in feminist criticism, you're going to be looking for the ways that fatherly figures or strong male figures seem to dominate and control the literature. The goal of feminism is to expose that and to point out that the females are not treated as fairly. It's also extremely important to realize that we're talking male and female symbolism. We aren't just talking male and female characters. Certainly there might be some interesting things to say about the way the female characters are treated or the way the male characters are treated within a text, but it's important to note that it goes beyond that. We're talking about anything that deals with the idea of the male or the female. In Thomas Foster's book, How to Read Literature Like a Professor, which is an excellent book and one I highly recommend, he does a great job of examining the concept of gender and gender symbolism. Really, anything that is a bowl or receptacle kind of object is usually depicted as female. Anything that is a key or a tower or something pointy is generally depicted as the male. So keeping your eyes out for that kind of imagery can help you to see what a feminist is looking for. Now you might notice that a pen or a pencil also falls into the realm of male symbolism. Gilbert and Gubar in their book The Mad Woman in the Attic make a great point of this in the very first line, showing that men seem to try to control writing and communication, and therefore they tell women how to think and how to be and what to believe. More complex forms of feminism do more than simply call this tension between the female and the male into the forefront. They actually question this tension and deconstruct it. What does it mean to be female? What does it mean to be male? If you wanted to do this deconstructive feminism, you can feel free to. You just would go use the theory of deconstruction and apply it to the tension between male and female. You can rewatch my video on deconstruction right here. So that's the basic theory of feminism. Now don't forget, you don't have to be a woman to be a feminist and to look at things from a feminist perspective. It's an interesting theory, no matter who you are. Thanks for watching. You can click on one of the links over here.
Okay, so that is a feminist approach. And when it comes to writing a feministic approach, no, in writing a critic, these are the following questions now that can be helpful now for you to identify. Now, what are the things okay, to identify in a particular context or text no, or even material okay, as a feminist. Okay, so that is the hints now when it comes to writing a critic in a feminist approach. Okay, so next one is we do have the historical approach or historicism na kung tawagan. So this approach seeks to understand a literary work by investigating the social, cultural, and intellectual context that produced it. Okay, this is a context that necessarily includes the artist's biography and the milieu. Okay, so in his history or historical criticism, so kasama naman na ngayon yung biography ng isang artist or ng isang author. Okay, ang key goal ng historical critics is to understand no, the effect of a literary work no, upon its original readers. Okay, so I have a video here of it no, as well no, for you to able to decipher no more what is historicism at ano pa yung under no, ng historicism. So meron pa kasi yan. Okay, so once the Zoom meeting has ended, kindly rejoin lang. Okay, so rejoin po para matapos natin itong critical approaches na ito. Okay, we do have less than 1 minute na lang din kasi. Okay, before we play the video, perhaps it would be stop na. Okay, kindly rejoin na once the Zoom meeting has ended.